It's Lucy Litch, and this is Tiny House Conversations. It's the Australian-based podcast where I interview experienced tiny houses, tiny builders, and adventurers in the tiny world so you can discover how to create, build, and transition into tiny life. Before we get into the show, I want to let you know about something I feel will be a game changer for aspiring tiny houses and the tiny community as a whole. It's a 3D tiny house designer that my friends at Tiny Easy have recently released. And since you're listening to this podcast to learn more about tiny living, you've probably been envisioning and dreaming about what your own tiny house could look like. Well, Tiny Easy's 3D Tiny House Designer is the first online design tool that lets you design your tiny house without needing any technical or design knowledge. I know for someone like me whose creative strengths are definitely not in design, that this is a time and frustration saver. I love that in the designer, I can just drag and drop building blocks to design my tiny house in minutes and then share the design with my friends and tiny house builders. How cool is that? But what's the alternative? Well, I'd literally be sitting here for weeks or maybe even months trying to learn a difficult professional drafting program, or I'd have to hire an expensive architect. All the technical stuff kind of hurts my brain. Can you relate? And I'd rather the money go towards some must-have features in my tiny house. The best thing about the designer is that you can try it out for free and start mocking up your tiny house today. Just choose one of their beautiful tiny house design templates or start from scratch and let your creativity and imagination run free. Now, if you like the 3D Tiny House Designer, the Tiny Easy team are giving you a super generous 75% off the first month of the premium version, and that includes a ton of more awesome objects, furniture, decorations, materials, and so much more to make your tiny house super special. So just head over to tinyhouseconversations.com/tinyeasydesigner and use the code LUCY75 to get started. I'll also put a link in the show notes with all the details for you for easy access. And if you haven't heard my tiny house conversation with the Tiny Easy team, make sure you go check out episode number 22 with Till, Lauren, and Eugene. They're doing some amazing things over in New Zealand to help make your tiny house journey easier, and this 3D designer is just the start. Now, let's intro today's episode. Hey, it's Lucy bringing you another episode of Tiny House Conversations. Joining me on the show today, I have Thiago Perrone, who is the managing director of the tiny house building company, Aussie Tiny Houses, based on the Sunshine Coast of Queensland. Aussie Tiny Houses are passionate about tiny living and providing alternatives to the current housing market. Their team of industry experts has been designing and building tiny houses in Australia since 2017. They specialize in optimizing small spaces and designing beautiful, practical, and affordable living solutions to help you create your tiny house vision. And in this conversation, we talk about tiny homes as a solution to homelessness, considerations for DIY building versus buying a tiny house. We also talked about creative storage solutions in a tiny home, the tiny house models and off-grid solutions Aussie Tiny Houses offer, including their soon-to-be-released deck trailers and the customer journey to work with them to build your tiny home. Questions you should ask your builder to make sure you're working with an ethical and reliable tiny building company in your area, and so much more. Now, Aussie Tiny Houses are one of the most well-known tiny house building companies in Australia, and I've wanted to get them on the show for a while. So with that being said, on to this tiny house conversation with Thiago. Thiago, thank you so much for joining me on Tiny House Conversations. It's really great to have you here.
Thank you, Lucy, for getting us here. I would love to talk to you more about tiny houses.
Yeah, the best kind of talk, I think. So Thiago, you're the managing director of the tiny house building company, Aussie Tiny Houses, and you're based on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland. I'd love if you're able to start by just sharing a bit about your background, where your interest came around tiny houses, and then how you came to be working for Aussie Tiny Houses.
I know the co-founder of Aussie Tiny Houses, which is my business partner, Fabio Paolucci. And we are long-time friends. Like, we know now each other for over 15 years, and we had worked together before in a different company, different industry, where he was the warehouse manager and I was a supervisor. That was interesting enough. That was for Havaianas, the thongs, I left the company, and then he was there still. He moved up to the sunny coast, and I was still in Sydney running another business, which was a fitness business. So he had the idea to start this. Yeah, like we were always talking and exchanging ideas. We could see the housing crisis coming to Australia at some point. Just looking at America, what happened in the economy in America and stuff. So we had this vision that it would be a great product, and it was a matter of time coming to Australia. So Fabio started on his own in 2017 with another person, and then this person left, and he was for a little bit of the time by himself trying to run it. But because we know each other for so long, he knew my strengths and weaknesses, and then so I did about him. I sold my business, my fitness business, and he invited me to come up and then taste the water with him. So I was actually working for Aussie Tiny Houses for 3 months, before joining in. So I am economist by degree. I never follow really economics, like it wasn't my passion. Fitness was my passion, and then being an entrepreneur, I had a few business with my father before. So when Fabio invited me, I was like, man, this is it. Like, let's go. Let's establish this company and let's give people a solution to live cheaper. So yeah, we've been doing this for over 5 years now.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I think you seem to be in Australia like one of the original and one of like the tiny building companies. And, just speaking to different tiny house builders, and there seems to be a lot, popping up, all the time. But it seems to be that for most of them, it's not just about building houses for people. And you touched there just a little bit on like the housing crisis and the economy and all of that. And I'm just wondering, like, with everything that Aussie Tiny Houses does, like, what's the bigger mission behind it?
Our mission is creating freedom through a lifestyle change. We create a product that gives people the opportunity to have a roof over their heads, which is beautiful houses as we design to each client's need. So they have freedom through this lifestyle change. They can live with a smaller footprint, they can live completely off grid, not relying on, they won't have any bills to pay. They can have solar, they can have harvest water, they can have their own garden, and then they can use their money from their daily job to do things that they like traveling or creating a new business. Like, so soon we'll see some videos that we're making with some of our clients from different age groups, how they thrived since they started living in a tiny house. So that's our mission, creating freedom through a lifestyle change.
Yeah, that's a great mission, and I love a lot of things that you said there. It seems to be that tiny houses, beyond just a housing solution, it does open up this opportunity for people in so many different ways to create that freedom and to be, I guess, living in a way that is more aligned with a simplified life and our nature and who we are, and lowering stress levels and just not having to succumb to that daily grind, because you're able to live in a house that's more affordable and those types of things. And so, I know that you guys have a blog post, which I found really great to read and interesting. And it's Are Tiny Houses a Solution to Homelessness in Australia? With the rising prices of living costs and the housing crisis that seems to be present all over the place at the moment, not just in Australia, but around the world, I do feel like tiny houses are a big part of this conversation. It's one of the solutions for alternative and more affordable housing, and it's supporting those in situations of homelessness. So I'd love if you're able to just speak a little bit more about that and how Aussie Tiny Houses is involved in supporting those that are homeless.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, you're not wrong. You're completely right. Like, this is a great solution for homeless people or people in the need to have a house. Like, we hear stories here on the coast from right, left, and centre, where even people that are not homeless, they're struggling to find houses. Especially because all the prices rising and then pushing people away from the coast, and that there's less availability in the countryside, as you go away from the ocean. In 2021, we joined forces with a company called U-Turn to reduce homelessness in our local area. They came to us, and then they exposed the problem, and then we started working together with them. Like, hey, we have the solution. It's a small footprint. It takes us 1 to 2 months tops to build one house. And then you will provide a house to at least 4 people to live in it. So depending on your funds, like you can have, like, every 2 months, you can take 4 people out of desperation, not having where to live. And then we ended up donating 10 grand to this project, and we're still working with them. So we're coming up with other solutions on how to build those special houses for this purpose, quicker and cheaper, so that's affordable. Who doesn't know U-Turn? I would love you guys to jump on, and then if you can help them any way, shape or form, we'll be always grateful for that. So yeah, we're looking to solutions where to build houses quicker and cheaper. So these private organizations, they can afford those houses. And also we're touching base with a few councils, especially like here where we are in Noosa, to lay out the options they have, because we do have the solution. We just need to work together with councils to provide the solution to the people that need that solution. So yeah, we're still working with U-Turn and a few other projects coming along, and in a few months, we should have something new for you guys.
There seems to be, like, there is so much. It's not a lack of resources, and there is so much land, and shelter and housing is a basic human right. So it's sad to see just what's going on out there. And I'm really grateful to see, just alongside that the tiny house movement is growing, and there are, more people looking towards this way of living. And then there are businesses like yours and many other ones too that are sort of trying to be part of this solution. Because when you think about it from the perspective of humans, like our basic human needs, like water, food, shelter, a warm place to sleep, and all of these things, it is that we need to see what we can do to help people meet these needs. And so I love that tiny houses is part of the conversation. And I'd love to move a little bit, Thiago, into just a bit more about Aussie Tiny Houses, but also alongside building companies, there are some people also DIY building their tiny houses. And I'm just curious, from your perspective, your experience, and what you're seeing, what would you say are some of the pros and cons of building versus buying a tiny house?
Building a tiny house is not as simple as it looks. Like, I'm sure there is some DIY people, like, they're pretty handy, especially if they have some sort of experience in the industry. But because it's a mobile unit, we always looked into how we're going to build these things. They're going to go on the road. Who knows which sort of terrain they're going to go through to get to the final location, like, we don't know. But some people wanted to put it across a little creek, river, these things are going to shake, they're going to move. There's expansion and contraction into a small space, such a tiny house. So we always looked into how do we build a bulletproof product. There was a lot of thought and engineering going into what we do. So I think if you are a DIY, like, you really need to look into those things that you only going to notice after you build it and you moved it. So I think having, like anything else, like especially in our personal lives or whatever you do, the foundations of what you do is the most important thing. So tiny house, we're talking about trailers, So some DIYs, they will go to the boil making around the corner. They've never done a trailer, but like, he's a cheap guy to do it. You do a cheap trailer. It's a foundation of your house. So you may face some some problems later on the track. So I recommend to look for professionals that they know what they're doing, and then they are specialized on certain things, such as trailers, or if you're doing a steel frame, or if you are DIY, I would recommend to build as you would build a house when you go with timber, and then use quality products. You got to do it better than stronger than you do a normal fixed dwelling, because as the name says, fixed dwellings, they're not going to move. They're only going to expand and contract with the weather, but like they sit still on a concrete slab, most likely on stumps that you need an engineer to do it. If I can say, like, over engineer it, so just go above and beyond, always thinking about the weight that you put on those things, because the maximum weight is 4.5 tons. And then if you go over 4.5 tons, it's not road legal.
You do want things to be done, like, especially when it comes to, say, the electrics and the plumbing and the different height, weight, and dimensions. Like, you do need to make sure that those things are done properly, and then also from a safety perspective too. So yeah, I can definitely see there's like pros and cons of both sides, and I guess maybe it also depends on people's budgets and stuff too. But I'd love to just talk a bit more, because I know that you guys are quite big on like the quality of your building materials and stuff, and would love to just run through some of them with you. So like maybe starting at the foundation, you just talked a little bit about trailers there. So talk a bit more about like the trailers that you guys use.
We were always concerned about the foundation of a tiny house, so what's the distance between the axles and the toe ball? What's the stress that you put on your drawbar? Those things people overlook. Like it's a trailer. It should be all right, and then sometimes it's not. So we were always careful to look for the best solution, and then knowing that the client will be happy and then won't face any problem. Because at the end of the day, we're building a house for somebody, it's like yes, it is a tiny house, it's a trailer, it falls into a caravan regulation, but it's someone else's house. They're going to live in it, and so you want it to be very strong. So the trailer was obviously the most important part of it at the beginning, because it is your foundation. So we got engineers involved to help us. They have years and years of experience with the automobile industry. And so they were able to put all the stress testing through it and everything else that needs to be done to make sure that our trailers are strong to support the weight of our houses. So yeah, we're always careful about that. And then everything else, our frames, we went through engineering, like we look at the spec sheets of each product. And when you're building a tiny house, if you allow me to touch on that subject, is you got to fall into a caravan regulation, right? So people say, well, if the caravan regulation doesn't say anything, I can do whatever I can. What we do, we look from on both sides. We look at, the caravan regulation is not saying anything about a specific subject or part of the build. So what we do, we go to the building code, Australia Building Code, and then we look what is recommended, and then we try to apply that to our tiny houses. So whatever is stronger, safer, we follow that. So, for example, for gas, there is a caravan regulation for gas. And then what we've done, like we invited the gas inspector to come and have a look at what we were doing to make sure that we were doing the right thing for the caravans, because they put people's life in danger. Like our gas feeder can go to jail if it's not doing accordingly, like it's a series of problems. And so we don't want anyone to have. So we go to an extent, to the extreme, to make sure that we're doing the right thing. And then, as I said, we build bulletproof houses that they are going to last.
It is super important to have that safety aspect for sure. And it's good to know, I think, just for people's peace of mind too. But then, of course, like when you're getting things done properly by an engineer and a professional, and you have like those certificates too, then you can also, if you're needing to register a caravan or apply for insurance, or caravan or tiny house on wheels, to apply for insurance and things like that too. And so with the framing you mentioned, so do you guys use timber or steel, or can you do either or?
Now, we moved from timber a long time ago. So I would say like we're operating for 5.5 years now. So we probably moved away from timber about 4.5 years ago, maybe. Because like before, as you probably noticed, the tiny house market before, people were like, oh yeah, I want a tiny house. So a tiny house at that time, because we're building with timber, the maximum length would go to 7.2 meters long, and then would get us to the weight capacity, which is 4.5 ton in some cases, depending on whatever is in the building. So we changed to steel because you gain longevity on the frames. It is engineered, so it's not just the carpenter putting it together, like forgetting nails or not putting proper bracings or noggins in it. So it gets engineered, and the manufacturer follow those requirements from the engineer. So it's peace of mind. It's lighter. It's termite free. Can go anywhere, and termites will never get to it. So there was a lot to gain with the steel frame in comparison to timber. So that's why we moved it.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, no, that's great to hear that. I didn't realize that you guys had changed over. And what about flooring and subflooring? What do you use for that?
Well, subflooring, we moved away from timber as well. We used to use structural plywood, but we moved away from it. We use a different product now that it's insulated, and it's 1.5, 1.4. And no one is using it in Australia, or not even New Zealand. As I said, we went to New Zealand to visit the few builders. We actually visit 6, and everybody's surprised at what we're using, because it's waterproofed on the side, is waterproofed on the inside of the house, and so we'll never get termites, we'll never get rotten, and then it's already insulated. So in a tiny house is crucial. So and then on top of that, we use vinyl, waterproof vinyl. Yeah.
No, that's interesting, because I haven't heard of that, using that other type of material before. And what about, because I know that you use different types of material, what about cladding? So what do you typically do for that?
Cladding we normally do is steel, which is the collarbone product on the trim, with the trim deck profile. We used to use corrugated iron, but like didn't like the look of it, and then since we start doing the trim deck profile, like people liked it, so we just moved away from the corrugated iron, and then trim deck looks pretty good, and that's what our clients like. It's maintenance free, so you never have to paint it. There's an extended warranty depending how far you are from the ocean, and it's durable. It's no brainer, and we often do the cedar feature wall to break the steel a bit, so too much steel might not look good. So we just put some sort of timber to break it up a bit, and it looks terrific. Yeah, it's working really well. People love it.
Yeah, I love the combination of the color bond and a bit of a feature of timber as well. That's what I'm having with my tiny house. And I know that, in a small space like a tiny house, often you've got to be efficient with the use of space and sometimes creative, and often there's also different things have multi-purpose uses, and there's different storage solutions and things like that. So I'm wondering, in the tiny homes that you guys build, can you talk more about some of those storage designs and what you've included for people in the past, or what you do in your base models?
Sure, absolutely. So just a bit of the history. How we came up with our models was, we did an open home back in the day, and then we had over 450, 500 people coming through the doors, and then we made sure that we got information from most of them. I don't know if you know, but like we have a design team in house of 3 people, with different expertise, which they help getting the clients to get to their final design. We don't do custom builds, like we do personalization. So we let the client make a few changes, as long as they don't change the footprint of their house. Because once you start changing bathroom and stuff, you change the joinery, and then all your space solutions, it will change. So listening to our clients, we developed all our range, that suits different demographics. And within that, we created the solutions within the space that we had. So there's a storage under the stairs. Like there's one of our our designs, that there's a massive storage under the stairs. There's another model which is it's a corner stair. The model is called Mululava. If you have a look on our website, these stairs is on the corner of the house, because we always wanted to get these stairs out from the middle of the kitchen or the middle of the house. So we created this solution that it wraps around the bathroom and goes up to the loft, and then that's always storage. There's a big hole in it, like we can put like suitcases, or you can just vacuum bag your winter clothes in summer, and vice versa. And we're still improving, like we got to an ideal range of houses that suits our customers, and we keep listening to them and then keeping adjusting and creating new designs. And then now we are more into developing these. One of the designers that works with us, she's focusing on storage solutions. So there's a lot of things there. If you look in the Italian market, and Japanese market, they have a lot of solutions for storage, and then that's what we are focusing on to introduce to our models.
Even though people are, I guess there is this minimalistic side of the tiny house movement, the reality is there's also people do like to have hobbies and passions and things, so they might need creative ways to store these different things. And I love seeing like all the different innovative things that are happening out there. So that's great that you guys incorporate it in your designs in a really clever way as well. And speaking of your models, do you want to let us know a bit more about each of the models that you have and the sizes and maybe even the base price ranges as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have about 10 to 12 different models, and they are divided between like loft bedroom models and then ground level models, right? So as I said, listening to our clients, there was a demand, because when first tiny houses came up, like it was always to maximize the user's space on the bottom, and having a loft, a sleeping loft. So that's why the lofts were a great solution to maximize the user space on the ground floor. But mature people with an advanced age, they didn't like the stairs in a tiny house. They found quite challenging to go up and down. So that's why listening to our clients, we created a range of ground level. So our houses, they go from 6 meter ground level to an 8.4 ground level, 9 meter ground level. And then we have the loft range models, which goes from 7.2 to an 8.4. We're working on a few different designs there. It's going to be a 10 meter ground level and a 9 meter dual loft. And the price will range from base models from around 90 grand to 139, 149.
When you think about the quality of the builds and the finishes that you guys use and the building materials, and then also I think as well as think about the cost of like a regular sized home, right? It's like maybe a tenth of the price of a regular sized home. And so it is really great to see that you can, have such a high quality housing solution for a lot of people for a fraction of the price of what it could be, like a mortgage or an apartment or a house or something like that. So
yeah, it's a great solution. It's unfortunate that we had COVID and then the prices of everything just went extremely up, in the construction industry. So that's putting a lot of strains in the tiny house market. Unfortunately, we cannot operate with the prices that we had a couple of years ago. That's a shame.
Yeah, I heard that like building materials went up something like 30% or maybe more, and then you factor in supply shortages too and all sorts of things going on. So yeah, really it's a challenge. Yeah,
well, challenging. Everything got affected by supply chain and then the lack of workforce, so it's you can't find people to work, and then the wages go up, and you can't find steel because the factories stopped during COVID, and then the price went up because there was a demand and there wasn't enough offer in the market. So yeah, it's from the smallest item to the biggest item, everything went up.
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine how challenging it would be. And it's like a knock-on effect as well. Like one little thing affects everything else. And speaking of all of that, like in the last couple of years, especially with all that's been happening in the world, like have you guys seen a bigger increase in the interest of your tiny homes from more people? And has that also, that demographic of people changed? Because there is also this, there's different groups of people, I think, in the tiny house world that are looking at it for, some are long-term living, some are short-term rentals, and there's the Airbnb thing as well. So like, what is that like for you guys?
Yeah, it has changed a lot in the last couple of years, like even 2.5 years now. Well, before, when we first started, like we were one of the first tiny houses company in Australia. There were like 2 or 3 at a time, if much. It was a lot of education. So at that time was young couples normally coming to us with the mentality of minimalizing, not getting to a mortgage, having this freedom through a lifestyle change, and was actually one on another mature person that would come to us, you know. And then COVID happened, and then there was a massive increase in people searching for tiny houses, and then demographics changed with it too. So a lot of people start knowing what a tiny house is, and then how affordable it is, and how great product it is, like being able to move it around if you want to live in different places over the years and things like that. So before was young couples, like probably late 20s, early 30s, you know, and then is likely we saw the change, like more and more mature people coming and looking for tiny houses. That's why I mentioned that we developed those ground level builds, because people don't go up on the lofts. And a lot of Airbnb. That was a massive change during COVID. Like people discovered that there was a demand for that type of holiday accommodation. Now we get a lot of demand from those guys, Airbnb in it. So there's so much land available in Australia, as you said before. So it just makes sense for a farmer, if he has a piece of land, he either rents it to a person that has a tiny house but doesn't have the land. You know, he rents a piece of his land that is not doing anything with it. Or some farmers just went like, look, we have the funds, we have the land, we have everything, and then we live in a beautiful area of Australia. Why not put an accommodation here, and then we make a bit of money out of it. So it became a really good market, and it's big in Australia, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. And it seems to be, I think we're just everything, you know, moving more towards being in the home. Like more people are working from home, and maybe they've decided they don't want to go to like an office job anymore, or a retail job, but they don't want to have to go to a workplace anymore. And then like seeing what, I guess, having a passive income type situation with an Airbnb, like if, you know, changing up that aspect of their lives and maybe bringing them so that they can be at home more and taking the pressure off having to like go to that 9-to-5 job, or bringing families closer together because they can have maybe a tiny house on the same property as and on the same land as other families. So like there seems to be, there's so many things like that going on. There's lots of different purposes that tiny houses can serve for different demographics of people. I think it's great to see.
Yeah, it's been a massive change, and then we were quite surprised. But yeah, it's been great for us. It's definitely pushed the market.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. And so you spoke a bit before about like caravan codes and all of that, and also you said you don't do full-on customization, but you do a bit of personalization. So I'm assuming that like building to the caravan codes, you have like the standard 15 amp inlet for power, and then like a garden hose for water and things like that. But so you also have off-grid solutions that people can choose from. So can you talk a bit more about those?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, you're correct. We use the 15 amp plug. We use the hose connection for water. We offer like water tanks, a variety of water tanks. We have a solar power solution. It can be on a tiny house, which you power bank is on the trailer as well. So it's everything in one. Or we created this other solution, which is what we call the solar trailer. So you have the panels, because sometimes people want to park their tiny houses under the trees, like in a cool area, so you don't have the sunlight coming directly to your roof, like the tiny house doesn't get too hot. You don't need to use aircon. So with the deck, the solar trailer, you can just move it away into the sun and your house is on the shade, so that's a great solution for living off grid. And we created as well the deck trailer, so it's also on wheels. So it's not on foundations or anything. So when you move your tiny house, you can take your deck trailer with you, which is a great solution to move your water tank, your water pump, your gutter, everything that comes with your house that needs to be detached from the house to be transported. So we created this deck trailer not long ago. It was like about a few months ago, and it's been a great success. Like people are using it quite a lot now.
Oh, and that's different. I didn't realize that you guys had done that. So you're saying that, like, if someone's relocating, they can, in addition to obviously they move their tiny house, and then they could move if they had a solar trailer, but then there's also a trailer that can carry like the rainwater and the rest of the other things they have to detach, like if they've got a portable deck or something.
Yeah, correct. It's
that's cool.
Yeah, it's on wheels, and is strong. Is one of our trailers, and yeah, it's a great solution. And then we created it because we have for the customers when they come and visit us, we have a block of land next door to us, which is our display village. So we have like about 3 of our own houses on display all the time, and plus finished houses that depending which stage it is, we allow them to go in. But like if it has clean, is ready for delivery, they can have a look from the outside. We don't allow people going into some clients' houses on our display. So because we were moving those displays, there's always someone that comes desperate looking for a house for any reason. We feel sorry for those people. So we go, okay, like you can have our display. We'll build another one because you are in the need. Someone came one day and then they needed a house for their mother, was 92, 93 years old. And we didn't have any plan in selling our display, but because of the circumstances, we just went like, oh man, you need this. Here we go, take it. So moving the deck was always a little bit of a pain for us in time, and used to take a lot of time. So we just went like, why don't we build a deck on a trailer, and then we just roll in, roll out, and then became a solution for decking. So yeah, and then it's a trailer that you can take your stuff on top of it.
Yeah, that's really great because it kind of solves that problem of, if someone does happen to relocate, there are so many things like to move, like that are quite large, or items as well, like the deck and the rainwater tank and stuff. So no, that's really great. We'll put a link in the show. Have you guys got that up on your website and everything? Like, is that available yet, or?
It's not available yet. Like a lot of people saw it on a show that we went to. But like it'll be coming up soon, so I can definitely let you know when it comes up. Like we're just in a matter of putting a few new things in our website, and then they should be up in the next couple of weeks, I would say.
Oh, awesome. Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll look out for it, and we can definitely put a link in the show notes when it's up and ready. And I'm also wondering, because I'm assuming that you guys, because you ship like all around Australia, that there's people living in. They're living different parts of the country, so there's different climates as well. Like some are living in warmer areas, some are cooler in the winter, and all of that. So what do you guys typically supply or recommend for heating and cooling options for people?
We do aircon, I think, is the best option for tiny houses from what we've seen and tried. If you look to a tiny house, and then where these tiny houses they normally go, majority of the time they go to a nice location with a beautiful view, and then makes total sense to have a fire pit or some sort of a fire device inside your tiny house. But in a tiny house is a trade-off, like everything you want that you would have in a normal house, it's going to take the space of something else in a tiny house. So we've tried like the fireplaces a few times, and that takes so much space because of the clearances that requires from combustible materials. So it restricts what you can have in your tiny house once you start putting when you put a fireplace in it. Like if you look in Canada and America, they have smaller ones, but like they're not Australian or New Zealand standard, so we can't install them here, unfortunately. So I recommend air conditioning. I just forgot the name, what it's called. Is it reversal cycle or something like that?
Yeah, reverse cycle aircon. Yeah. So you can use it for the heating and the cooling. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the one that we install in probably, I would say, 90 to 95% of our houses. It goes out with the aircon.
Do you find that many of your clients, like, have they needed to look at financing for their tiny homes?
Yeah, we have a broker that assists our clients with the finance side of things. More and more, like there are companies that do finance. They are more interested in tiny houses because they increase in the market and there's a demand for it. So yeah, we definitely do. And then we just found someone that can do up to 70% of the price of the house, which is unheard of in the industry. If they want to know, they can contact us. I'll just keep that close to my chest right now because that's a great card to have in our sleeves, you know.
Yeah, for sure. And if someone is interested in working with you guys and getting you to build a tiny house for them, what does that process look like as a customer? You know, do they? You talked about you had a showroom and all of that, but yeah, what can people expect that process to look like?
Yeah, so that's what we are here at Aussie Tiny Houses, that what we are proud of. Like we always look from the client's perspective and then how they would like this process to happen. So we always collecting feedbacks and then trying to improve what we do in every sense, like from the sales perspective, design perspective, and obviously construction perspective. So we called it the customer journey. So there's a series of things where, like, our sales team, they are, like, for example, 3 guys working on the sales team. And then when you inquire about a tiny house, you go through one being a manager. So clients don't talk to him, obviously, but we have 2 sales guys. So the first one they will talk to will identify their needs, if how prepared to have a tiny house they will have. And then if they're prepared, we pass to the second person, which is going to go and understand what tiny house will suit them. Once they got all that, like we are really transparent in regards how our contract works, how the payment works, how the building stages they will get informed on every single building stage. And then once they sign the contract, they go past to the designing team to pick and choose colors, flooring, bench tops, joinery, tapware, fan, aircon. If they want to modify the joinery, that's where it comes. They can personalize that tiny house. Most of the time, it's on the joinery. What if they want a dishwasher? If they don't want an oven, whatever they would like to. So they're going to the designing process with one of our designers. From the designing team, it goes through our operations coordinator. And the client is informed all the way what's happening. So sometimes it takes a bit of time to go from sales to the designing team, but they know when the designing team is going to get in touch with them. So they're always aware that it might take 2 to 3 months depending on our lead time. And then once they finish that process with the designing team, they know how long it's going to take for that build to start getting built. And then once it comes into production, they get an automatic email saying, hey, we are ready to build your tiny house. The process is going to start. Our coordinator is going to start sending you pictures of the evolution of your build. So they get pictures all the way until the tiny house is finished. And then once the tiny house is finished, we send a video. You know, we have a quality assurance process to make sure that everything is done accordingly. So we send a video to the client before they issue the last payment. And then we organize transport. They receive their house, and then we start doing our follow-up on feedback to see if everything is working accordingly, if they have any issues. Because, you know, these tiny houses, they move in a fixed dwelling. There's a few things that you need to do even after you do the handover, there's always something to do. So we make sure that we are contacting our clients to find out from them if there is anything they're not happy with before they contact us.
You mentioned before, so what's the, is it 2 months you said that maybe it takes to build as well typically, or?
Yeah, it's taking under 2 months. Yeah, it's taking just a bit over a month. We say 2 months because we under promise and over deliver.
Yeah.
So that's the thing, because you never know this current situation with the supply chain. We had to overcome a lot of obstacles, like with the supply chain, finding solution. Lucky we have a great team that it's always thinking ahead, and also myself with the experience in the industry, I'm always thinking ahead and then trying to foresee any issue that may come along. So yeah, we always give a bit more time, but like normally it'll take like a month and a week for us to finish a build. But then we make sure that once we finish, we drive the house across the road, not across, just next door to our display village. We let it sit there for a couple of days to see if anything out of the usual shows up. We get our sales team to go and do a final check, because we building these things day in, day out. Sometimes we overlook a few things. So we get the sales team, one of the guys from the sales team, to go down with a checklist. And then if there's anything they're not happy with, they get back to us, and then we go and then fix it.
It sounds like a really comprehensive, thorough process. And I like how you talked about it being a customer journey. And I think it's super important to like have that customer focused and customer centric view of what you're doing, and it's really great to hear. And Thiago, we have not only in Australia, Australia is the largest audience of this podcast, but we do have people listening from around the world, including United States, New Zealand, and Europe, and all over. And I'm just curious, so for maybe someone in their area or their country, if they're looking for a tiny house building company, I know that you guys are really great with all the different blog posts that you come out with. I think they're really helpful for people too. But you do have a blog post that talks about 12 questions you should ask your tiny house builder. Are you able to just share maybe a few of those important questions if someone's looking to find like an ethical, professional, reliable builder in their area or country, making sure that they're doing the right thing? Because unfortunately, there are also some not so ethical, and I've heard a lot of stories, which I'm sure you have as well, of things going wrong with builders and people losing money and all that kind of thing. So
absolutely, like first of all, like I can go quickly through those 12 points, but an important thing is what is the company's reputation? Like if you go to a restaurant, if they're gonna go for breakfast in a coffee shop, they might jump on the internet and then just check what the reputation, how many stars they have, so you should be doing the same, because if you're building your own house with somebody else, or somebody else is building your house, you should be looking into their reputation first, who they are, how long they have been doing it, how do they do it, what's the company history, is their trailer, like I said before, the trailer has been engineered, like has the frame been engineered, like what type of materials they're using, how do they fix those materials, how do they stop like expansion and contraction on a small space. For example, we have a scale in-house, so we know how much weight there are in our tiny houses. Like others are the builders building to those restrictions of the caravan, which is 4.3 high from the floor, from the ground to the highest point of your house, 2.5 meter wide, falls into 4.5 ton. Because by my experience, sometimes I just looking at photos of some houses, I can tell they will be overweight, especially if they are built with a timber frame as a normal house. Do they have designers, like people that are specialized on actually placing everything into that little space, and then has this design been tested, has been put some thought into it. Like the designers are really good to do it. For example, I am not the person to do it. So that's why I get the designers, because I trust them to do it. And then we have an architect in-house that has created with us all the designs. We come up with the idea and then he fine-tunes it. So has those builders have anyone designing it, or is it coming out of his mind? And then once he builds your house, you're going to see, oh, this doesn't work. He didn't let me know about it. Is the list of possible inclusions and upgrades very clear? You know, how much will they cost you in the end? Do you know what you can have in your tiny house? What solutions they have for solar, water, aircon, cooling, and heating, cooling, as you said. Like, for example, how are those things? How it's going to look like on the outside of your house? If you're really interested in look and feel and longevity, like we do a lot of things that we think how it's going to be easier to service, you know, or how it's going to look on the outside. We don't want to be having pipes running through the outside and have flashings covering all your beautiful cladding and creating points of attention if it does rain, you know. Like we don't put a lot of silicone to protect things from the water. We do in a different way where we don't need to use silicone to protect from the water. It's already protect itself, you know. How much you can customize your build. Do they provide you like with gas and electrical certificates? You know, are they using professionals that have their certification on their trades, or they just whacking things together, passing wires, putting gas lines as they wish? Can you visit a finished product? Can you go in detail? Like our sales guys are always up to, if you're far away, like you can arrange a time with them and then they will do a FaceTime with you, and then they will walk you through the house and then show every single detail and finish of the house. Contract is a big thing, as I said before. Like you need, like we are very transparent with our contract. We had it written by solicitors, and then we never had a problem with it. We are very transparent. So what does the contract says? You know, what type of warranty they provide, and then what is the lead time? Is that really achievable? The lead time they're gonna give you, like just for instance, here we are employing around 35 staff to make sure that we are under promising and over delivering. These are the main points that you should be looking at if you're looking to buy a tiny house from those guys around the corner, or from a company like Aussie Tiny House. They have been established in the market for over 5 years and then use professionals to do the work.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's so important to do your due diligence with all of those things that you mentioned. I think it's really valuable insights, and it's always good to see what past customers have experienced too. You know, like you always find that out as well. And I think when people have had good experiences with different companies, they're more than happy to share, you know, about that too. And so, yeah, thank you for sharing all of that. It's really helpful. And yeah, that blog I think is super helpful. So I'll put the link to that in the show notes if anyone wants to read that in full. So Thiago, as we start to close out the conversation today, we'd love to just know, are there any projects that you guys are working on at Aussie Tiny Houses? Maybe, I know you talked about the deck trailer, but is there anything else that's coming up for you this year or in the nearby future that you want to share with everyone?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Like we're just working on it's not a new, but like it's kind of new in Australia. It's a different wall system. So we have engineers involved in helping us to develop this, which is called in America structural insulated panels. So they're structural, they're insulated, and they will be a great solution for tiny houses, I would believe, because they can reduce the weight and without compromising the structure of the tiny house. So it's, again, like we are going through the process with an engineer and to make sure that product it's as strong as a steel frame, you know, because they use that in America and Canada. Some places you can see videos on YouTube where they structural insulated panel houses, they can survive a hurricane or something like that, and in other houses they don't. So we are just trying to bring a technology here and then just trying to adjust to our needs, especially with the tiny houses. As I said before, is a movable home, and there's different things go into a tiny house when you move in it. So yeah, this is an exciting project that we've been working on a couple of months now, if not even more. But like, yeah, we're getting to the point where we can introduce this to the market in a few months' time. So it's very exciting. Like, hopefully before the end of the year, we're going to have at least 2 houses built with that system, which is reduces not possibly, but like most likely will reduce the weight, which is going to allow us to increase the houses in length, or even provide more storage solutions, as we said before, because joinery is one of the heaviest items in a tiny house.
Sounds like always looking to sort of innovate and improve and see, what the needs are and what can be done. So that's exciting to hear about. And if anyone wants to come and find you guys, connect with you online, whether it's on social media or your website, where's the best place that they can do that?
So the best place to contact us is via our website. So you can book yourself in for a tour if you would like to come in person. Otherwise, just on our website, you're going to find our number, which I can give you guys here, which is 07 5324 2499. Or also you can contact us on our social media, Facebook, on Instagram, and then someone will get back to you straight away. And you can book a visit or a FaceTime call or whatever suits you.
All right. And I'll put a link to all of those things in the show notes as well. So if you're looking for those show notes, you can find them at tinyhouseconversations.com. Thiago, thank you so much for your time today. It's been really great to get to know a bit more about you and Aussie Tiny Houses. And I think that it'll be great for the listeners to hear more about what you guys do. And thank you for what you're doing in the tiny house community as well. I really appreciate it. So thanks again.
My pleasure. Like, I'm always open to have a chat with you whenever you like. Contact me and I'll be more than happy. We love what we do. I do love what I do, and then putting a smile on people's face, when they get their tiny house, is what drives me to run the Aussie Tiny Houses. So yeah, I'm a really happy man working in this industry, I can tell you.
Yeah, that's really nice to hear, because I've spoken to many different people on the show and offline, and tiny houses can change people's lives, right, in so many different ways. So it's really cool to be part of this movement in this space with you. And if you're listening to us at home, thank you so much for being here and taking the time out of your day. Go check out everything that Aussie Tiny Houses are doing, and stay tuned every Thursday for new episodes of Tiny House Conversations. And I'll see you next week. Thanks again for listening. And if you enjoyed the conversation today, you found it valuable, and you want to support the podcast, the best way you can do that is to share the love. That way I can keep bringing you more tiny house conversations to help you on your own tiny journey. So here are 3 ways that you can support the podcast. Number 1, if you have a friend or family member that you feel would benefit from hearing these conversations, feel free to share it with them, email them, text them, send them a telegram, do whatever you need to do to share it with them. Number 2, if you hit the subscribe button, you'll know exactly when the next episode is live. And number 3, if you head on over to Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening to podcasts and leave a 5-star rating and review. Thank you so much in advance. I appreciate you, and I'll see you in the next episode.